Welcome to the third video in the Building Interactive Website series, which will go over text-related elements. So in the previous video, we learned about the tags that are required to create the most minimal website using HTML, but the problem is, with only those elements, we can't really control how our page appears. So we need some way to control the way text is displayed on the page. Thankfully, there are other elements that exist which help us format text. The first one that we're going to go over is the H1 to H6 elements, which serve as headings. So the way we build these headings is by creating them similar to how we made these elements. So a less than sign, and then H1, and then a greater than sign. Again, you might have to type this manually in Notepad or other text editors, but there should only be one H1 in a page, and that should describe the content in this entire page. So as an example, I'm just going to call it my classes, because I'm planning on making this page about the classes I'm taking. And so then we can move on to H2, the next most significant heading, and we can have multiple H2s under this H1. It's recommended to always move to the next number after you're done with H1, because if you skip to H3 or H4, then it won't be semantically correct, and accessibility technologies could potentially get confused. So it's best to always go H1, H2, H3, H4, and so on. So the H2s in my case could just be the names of the classes, for example. I'm just going to come up with the names of some classes here. And then under each H2 we can create H3s, which are the next most significant heading. And so for each class we could create an about section and potentially something about the difficulty of that class. And of course we could keep going. Under H3 we could have multiple different H4s and then H5s. But this hierarchy of headings ends at H6, so you can't go further than that. But for this website, going from H1 to H3 is good enough, so I'll just leave it here. The next element that we're going to go over is the P element, which defines a paragraph. When it comes to the P element, instead of denoting another subsection like these heading elements, these actually define the content in your page, and you can put it below any heading element. So I'm just going to put it under the about section in the under the math section, and I'll just type something simple like this teaches calculus, and you can see that this paragraph text is not in bold, which implies that this is actual content. This is an actual paragraph that's meant to be read. And we can of course add other paragraphs too. Like for the difficulty, it'd say this class is really difficult. and it'll appear under the difficulty subsection. Multiple paragraphs can also be right next to each other, so we can create another P element here which says something else. And as you can see, there's now a gap in between each of these paragraphs to clearly distinguish them from one another. The final three elements that we're going to go over in this video are the strong element, EM, and the mark element. These three elements are mainly meant to be used in the primary content of the page, like paragraphs, for example. And so the strong element makes text bold. So if we wanted to put really difficult in bold, for example, we could do strong like this, and then drag really difficult inside of it. Now if we run the code, you can see it's bold now. And then EM puts emphasis on text inside by italicizing it. So if we wanted to emphasize the word can, so that people know that they can do it, then we can just put word can inside the EM tag and it'll appear italicized. And to highlight text, we can use the mark tag. And so if we wanted to highlight preparation, for example, we can put preparation and it'll be highlighted yellow. And that's the end of episode 3 of the Building Interactive Website series. Thank you very much for watching, and look out for episode 4.